In addition to the deadly fires that brought destruction across the state of California, new reports suggest that the fires also helped to spread toxic nuclear waste from contaminated sites. You know, the people in California, it's just continuously adding insult to injury with what they've experienced, both in terms of the fire, in the bad legislation coming out of the state that's protecting the energy companies from starting these fires. But now we've got this report about the fact that the Santa Susana Field Laboratory decades ago got contaminated with nuclear site and other toxic chemicals. It's now been burned, put into the atmosphere, put into the air, and is potentially poisoning millions of people in California.
It's ugly on so many levels, But what really should infuriate people that are in even 100-mile radius of Santa Susana Field is that for about 20 years you've had environmental advocates that say you need to clean up the radioactive problem in this field. You need to clean up the toxic fuel problems in this field because both of those things are hugely dangerous to the population. So you have had physicians, these physician groups that really try to focus on good social issues. So this one physician group said years ago, I think it was Physicians for Social Responsibility, came out and said, look, we've got this ticking time bomb, and it is called the Santa Susana Field. It is a place where they tried to create rocket fuel, experimented with all different kinds of rocket fuel. They understood that the rocket fuel had all types of physical ailments associated with birth defects, cancer, leukemia, neurological disease, all types of gastrotype. But the point is this. So you've had this group that has been pushing the environmental organizations out there, pushing the DOD, pushing everybody that has a stake in this to say, you know what? If we ever get a big fire, if we ever get some type of fire calamity or even a flood calamity, that it's going to affect people within a 100-mile radius around here. And sure enough, it's what happened.
Exactly. What's happened here at this site is they brought in all this toxic waste. As you mentioned, the fuel, a lot of it was just kind of dumped there. And then they actually took these crafts, the aircrafts, some contaminated with nuclear waste because they were used in nuclear testing. They washed them off in this area and then let all that runoff go in. So you've got nuclear waste, you've got diesel waste, you've got jet fuel waste, and all of it sat in the ground for decades. And then, as the scientists are explaining, what happened is the vegetation grows with these chemicals in there. And then when the fire comes, obviously, it burns all this, incinerates it, and
radioactive smoke. What you're talking about is radioactive smoke. And what really is disturbing is the number of times that these environmental groups have said to the EPA, have said to the local Department of Environmental Protection, whatever that is called out there, you need to clean this up. And as a matter of fact, in 2017, they said, okay, we're going to do something about it. You actually had you actually had these governmental organizations that said, first of all, it's called the DTSC, okay? And the DTSC, first of all, said, you don't have to worry about it. Everything is safe. Don't worry about the fact that the radioactivity coming from there actually registers significantly on a radiograph. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the fact that, yes, we know there's fuel actually buried there that can cause birth defects and it can cause cancer and it cause a whole host of problems. Don't worry about it. They've been told that there is no risk to humans for about 30 years, okay? So finally, 2017 comes. 2017, and these cats with the DTSC are going to clean it up. They said, yeah, we're going to clean this up. A year ago, you know what's happened? Zero. And now it was right within the path of the fire, spreading that garbage all over a 100-mile radius.
And what's really sad here is that because of the high winds that were taking place during that fire, that's what allowed this toxic smoke to spread so badly. It was the perfect condition that set up this toxic contamination. And we already know, first and foremost, the companies like Edison and PG&E, their faulty equipment was responsible for these fires. We know that. They've admitted that. There's no question about it. The California legislature is working to protect them to an extent. I think about 80 people at this point died in the latest fire, the Woolsey fire, and now, or that was Camp Fire, excuse me.
Camp Fire, yeah.
And so now we're dealing with, on top of all of that, toxic radioactive contamination that has the potential to poison everybody in a 100-mile radius with cancers, with neurological diseases, birth defects, what have you, for decades at this point.
Now, you understand, we're going to be criticized for talking about this because according to these flying monkeys, what's her name? Suzanne Spalding and her flying monkeys of corporatists that are actually saying that reports like this are hurting democracy because we're talking about it. Now, that's literally what they're going around giving speeches to corporate meetings, corporate roundtables, CEO business roundtable. So we're going to tell the story anyway because, unfortunately, this story really was only told by Truth Out.
Yeah.
I mean, Truth Out was the first organization that looked at this and said, "Wow, this is a lot worse than what we thought." And so this story actually tells why it's a lot worse, doesn't it?
It does, and it also goes to show that at this point in the United States, we're really living in a bad science fiction movie because you had scientists that had been warning for decades, that this happened, it was contaminated. Meanwhile, the government, the regulatory capture that we have out there in the state of California, which is supposed to be this liberal bastion of hope, California, it is corporate
Our last great
control.
bastion of liberal hope is California, and that's where all these governmental agencies are owned. They are owned and operated by corporations, just like they all. Let me give a shout out to this Duffield character. I didn't see his first name, but Duffield was this activist, along with the Physicians for Social Responsibility. If it weren't for them, none of this would be told. If they had not been out doing this for 20 or 30 years, none of this story would be told. And this would be just fine. This would be excellent for the Suzanne Spalding types who think that it is just absolutely wrong for us to be able to tell stories like this.
Right. Well, it hurts the corporations who poison us. It hurts. In this case, this was a lot of government poison coming from their nuclear tests and things like that.
I think we're going to call these the Suzanne Spalding segments. Okay. Yeah.